Welcome back to Breaking Bias and the Pillars of uh, Allyship. My name is Andre Koen. I want to say again, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to accelerate this a little bit, and I want to talk a little bit about historic systems and systemic oppression, as well as examining our privilege as we kind of get into the meat of our sessions. And so, again, breaking bias, historic and systemic oppression, examining privilege, and wielding our power. And so when we think about this idea of systemic and historic oppression, one of the things I want to bring our attention to is that oftentimes when we think about the Constitution of the United States, the preamble, the Declaration of Independence, what we must recognize is that the those great and sacred documents that we hold so dear, unfortunately, left people out of the picture. And so, when we think about this idea of addressing historic and systemic racism, or oppression, what we're saying is that we want to make sure that the promises of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence are manifest in our time. And we have to do that as an active participant because we cannot wait for it to accidentally happen, because we know that that doesn't happen. And so we have to be active in recognizing that there were laws in place that worked to try to trick people out of their humanity, right? To dehumanize them, or to make them products or taxable units, right? Cogs in a wheel. And so when we talk about this idea of addressing systemic and historic oppression, that's what our aim is, to really think about that. And so when we think about that, it's important to recognize that these systemic and historic oppressive systems were actually trying to deny or diminish the human motivation, right? The things that drive people to produce and have a happy life, this life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so what are some of the key motivations of human beings? Well, we're looking for safety, significance, and belonging. Significance suggests that I am a person with power. I'm significant. I can contribute. Belonging says that I can be in relationships with people who understand my significance, who understand my ability to contribute, right? And then lastly, safety is the concept that I can be physically, mentally, intellectually, and spiritually safe, psychologically safe, to be in relationships with people who understand my significance, right? And so the systems attempted to deny people access to their basic humanity. And so when we think about this becomes an important driver for us. We also recognize that we all have earned and unearned privileges. We have unearned privileges and we have earned privileges. And those aren't problematic until we start to see them as entitlements, right? So I'm entitled to this, that, or the other thing because I have these privileges, whether they're earned or unearned. And so we have to be mindful that that privilege is not an off and on switch. I either have it or I don't have it. It actually is more like a dimmer switch that, given the context that we're in, I may have more or less privilege in those particular contexts. And so it's not an off and on switch. And people will say, well, I earn these things. I would say that there is merit and meritocracy, meaning that I have earned a spot, or I've worked hard to gain a thing, which is that kind of earned privilege. But there are also these large pockets of unearned privilege that sometimes disguise themselves as meritocracy. If you recall kind of the Little Orphan Annie, the pulp novels of the rags to riches stories, right? Many of those stories we would say that was the rugged individual. But we also must recognize that in many of those stories, there is a daddy warbucks that is funding that, or that is a mentor to, or a guide. And so when we think about that in our career, who's guiding us in our career? Who are our mentors that are helping us be this rugged individual? Because I would imagine that there was somebody that helped us. And so maybe that, when we think about our privilege, even the earned privileges, we have to recognize that there was someone that helped us, that guided us, that encouraged us, that believed in us. And so even examining this idea of privilege, and when we're not willing to do for others what was done for us, then that's when we're taking advantage of our privilege and turning it into entitlement. And so with that, we're going to stop this particular session. I'm going to say thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to seeing who you become as we continue these lessons, and we'll see you in the next session. Thanks. Bye.